Alright, so right now there's no sugarcoating the fact that Aston Martin is currently doing pretty badly, especially comparing them to how they did last year. As we know, P4 for Racing Point, now Aston Martin. Currently they're in P7 as a constructor with 68 points. They're essentially equally between Alpine, AlphaTauri and Williams. Alpine and AlphaTauri currently have the same amount of points. They dropped back 3 whole positions in just one season. Things were really looking bright for Racing Point last year, so what happened? First, let's take a look at the car. We all know that last year the Racing Point was nicknamed the Pink Mercedes because it was essentially a complete copy of the Mercedes W11, which of course was the best car on the grid by a mile. Of course, the Racing Point wasn't a complete one-to-one copy because obviously we know Mercedes and generally any top team will try and disguise or hide their upgrades until any racing begins. Also, they didn't have access to any of the technical data Mercedes were using, the facilities Mercedes have and things like that, so logically the car was going to be slower. Either way though, it performed stunningly and throughout the season it impressed lots of people while doing so. When the regulation changes were announced, the most crucial one was probably the floor regulations, which hurt mostly low-rake cars, again such as Mercedes and their counterpart then, Racing Point. These regulation changes seem to have fit high-rake cars such as Red Bull, and coupling that with the fact that Honda made some serious progress with their engine put Red Bull in the front of the pack in terms of R&D. But if you've been watching the races, which I reckon you have considering the fact that you're watching an F1 video right now, you would have noticed that Mercedes have surely recovered a lot of the speed they lost and now have, in my opinion, a car that is quite noticeably better than Red Bull's. However, Aston Martin haven't made any significant progress since the start of the year. And I would just put that down to the fact that Mercedes are just a great team with loads of cash to invest into the team who understand their car inside out perfectly to the point that they could adapt it to suit the situation. This could be down to a lot of factors like facilities and the like, which Aston Martin currently just cannot match. So it makes sense as to why they haven't recovered much of their lost pace. But the car isn't the sole reason for Racing Point doing so well last season. There's also the drivers. Sergio Perez absolutely smashed it last season, taking P4 in the drivers' standings with 125 points, 6 points ahead of Daniel Ricciardo at Renault. Perez took his first podium of the season with a stunning drive at the Turkish Grand Prix and went on to win his first ever race at the Sakir Grand Prix in Bahrain. Lance Stroll, on the other hand, also had a fairly decent start to the season. Obviously not including Austria, but in the second half he did have more lows than highs. However, he did score his second podium in the second last race of the season in Bahrain, which was obviously a very good race for Racing Point. So yeah, not a bad season from Lance, but it definitely had its moments of bad luck. There's no denying it though, Checo was in top form for the 2020 Formula 1 season and was clearly one of the best drivers on the track, which is why everyone was shocked when they found out that he was getting the boot. If anyone proved they deserved a seat in Formula 1 that season, it was Checo. And Pierre and George, and listen, the 2020 season let a good few drivers prove themselves. But like I was saying, Perez definitely proved he was worthy of a Formula 1 seat, and the announcement that the team he helped get to where they did was kicking him out definitely left people confused and ultimately worried for Checo's future in F1. However, rightfully so, Sergio was announced to join a little team for the 2021 season. I don't know, you might have heard of them, they go by the name Red Bull. Of course, by bringing in Checo, they also had to release Alex Albon, which was also a heated topic, but that's a different story in itself. But back to the Aston Martin lineup. They replaced Sergio with 4-time Formula 1 world champion Sebastian Vettel. However, there definitely was a catch. Vettel was just coming off his worst Ferrari and Formula 1 season to date, finishing P13 with 33 points. That's 1 point ahead of Danny Kvyat in the AlphaTauri and 65 points behind his teammate Charles Leclerc. Now, obviously Seb was definitely not in the best of working conditions with tremendous pressure from the team and a tractor to work with. This for sure affected him and his overall form negatively, and now here we are in 2021, Seb has definitely regained some of that confidence and just overall pace and good form, already doing better than last year with 43 points and a P2 finish this season, which could have been 61 points if he didn't get disqualified from the Hungarian Grand Prix. That would have put him in P11 just ahead of Esteban Ocon in the driver's standings. So the truth is, I do think Perez would have had a couple more points at this point in time since he would have had more experience and all-round feel of the car. However, I do also see potential with Aston and Vettel as 2 podiums. Yes, I'm including his second since he did put the car on the podium at the end of the day. Is not bad at all for his first year in a completely different car. On the other hand, Lance Stroll hasn't had the best of seasons so far. It hasn't been particularly terrible, but it's just been meh. Really, I did expect him to be pretty much equal, if not ahead of Vettel at this point in the championship, considering his experience with the car and Vettel's disqualification. But to be honest, I wouldn't say either of the Aston Martin drivers have done bad this year, considering the car is worse and that it's Vettel's first year in a completely new car. Bar the disqualification, they've done alright. If anything, I feel that Stroll is kind of underperforming, like I said, but some of the bad performances can just be put down to bad luck. But Aston's drivers and car are definitely not the only thing affecting their place in the championship. There's also the teams and drivers they're competing against, and while Aston seems to have dropped back in terms of performance, other teams just seem to have gotten better, such as McLaren, Ferrari and AlphaTauri. Williams has also improved, but that doesn't really affect Aston Martin since they are still essentially a backmarker team. However, teams like McLaren and Ferrari are a different story. You see, a big reason for Racing Point being in P4 last year is that they didn't have a direct competitor for that place, because Ferrari were having their worst season in a while. If we're being realistic here, the chances of Racing Point ending in P4 for the Constructors' Championship would have been slimmed down drastically if Ferrari were in the form they are in this season. But of course, that wasn't the case, and that's all just a big what if, but the truth is they got P4 and they definitely deserved it. But to track back and get back to the point, I think overall the two things that affected Aston Martin the most this season was the inability to adapt the car to the updated regulations and the fact that other teams just simply got better. It really is a shame to see them drop back, but with next season's regulations knocking at the door, we don't know what could happen, so let's not come to any conclusions just yet. But yeah, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to consider liking and subscribing. It really helps support the growth of the channel and I would greatly appreciate it. On that note though, I do hope you all have a great night and I do hope to see you all next time.